Madame Stoner, Pep Stoner, great to have you on the pod. Talk about some paddle and empower paddle. In your own words, Pep, as I like to start, who is Pep Stoner?
Thank you, Minter, for asking me onto your podcast. I'm glad we've finally got here to record. Uh, Pep Stoner is a passionate paddle player, just like everybody else, started playing and just got addicted very quickly through the social nature of paddle. I was probably a little bit of an early adopter in the UK because it was 2020 through sort of COVID lockdowns, and that's where the journey really started, playing paddle and having a lot of fun with it. Since then, I've traveled all over the world with paddle, played for my country, met amazing people and coaches, and yeah, I'm just really living the dream. I feel a bit lucky. I need to pinch myself sometimes, Minter.
Matching passion with purpose and making it a business. So let's talk us through the very first time you discovered paddle. How did it go? Who was it who took you, and how did you get addicted?
Well, actually, it was on holiday in Portugal. So for
Ah,
years, yeah, I know. For years, we'd gone on a tennis holiday to Valdellobo, and we used to get everybody out of bed at 9 o'clock for, 2 hours intense tennis. Seems a bit weird now, but we did it, and it was great. But one year, one of our friends decided to try this weird sport with a concrete wall that was on the side, and we went and watched, and we thought it was quite fun. And then we had a lesson with a Portuguese fabulous coach and just really loved it. Came back. It was actually the year of COVID, so we were lucky to have traveled there that year. Came back, and then our local club was Stoke Park in Buckinghamshire, which was very early days with paddle. They put up courts sort of 2018, 2019. And I think because of COVID, my usual women's tennis group had sort of fallen apart a bit. Somebody moved back home and it just was hard to organize. But I could hear all this laughter going on from the two paddle courts at the back. And so I just signed up for their roll up. So it was easy. That was the first thing. I didn't have to think. I just signed up. And the coach there was George Weller. He just put us
oh,
into
lovely
groups.
man.
Lovely George Weller, and he really got me going because I think it was fun, it was mixed, it was, I found I got, good quite quickly because I had racket skills. And then, which something was a bit strange because I really wanted to compete, and I don't think I really loved competing at tennis. I loved social tennis, but as a child, I don't think I really loved the
Hmm.
competitions. Suddenly, here I was, late 40s, thinking, I love this, I want to compete. And there were no women. There were no women to compete. So that was really the start of the journey. I couldn't, in those days, there were very few women doing the LTA competitions. And so I think the first hop was only men, and I played with a bloke, and it was the first
Hmm.
iPadel was men only. So it was quite weird to think back then. There were so few women playing. But I went all over the country competing. It was great fun, really
And
good fun.
explain to me how it is that you enjoyed social tennis but wanted to compete in paddle. What do you think makes that or made that happen for you?
I don't really know. I think as a child, I was pushed to do a lot of competition tennis, and maybe I just didn't love it. I don't know what happened. But I continued playing tennis to university and then socially after that. But of course, with tennis, it's such a hard sport. If you haven't had lessons as a junior or really been taught, the first point is so difficult to serve. So if you haven't been taught how to serve, and quite often with a group of four middle-aged women, somebody's serve goes, the ball's out, I mean, it just, I sort of just found that paddle was more fun. It was quick and easy. All the reasons everybody's addicted now, it was the same for me. I just found I could get going and playing. Probably everyone on that court wasn't maybe as strong from a tennis perspective, but they could all play, we could all have fun. And then once I started to master the wall was when I really got addicted because that was something challenging. I was like, wow, I really want to get that corner, or I want to learn more and more and more. So, and the competitions I loved because it pushed me to learn. A, how good I was versus the opponents, but B, could I really do these shots I was training in during the week with George? So I think it was a challenge, but maybe it was a bit of maturity as well. Maybe I just got to that age where I was comfortable to just go on court and be and compete. It's just yeah, I just loved it.
I just when you mentioned George a couple of times, I played in the Anglo-American Cup alongside my good buddy, fellow co-Australian slash Brit, and we were coached by George in the very final match of the whole competition, and he was such a good coach on the bench. Didn't win, but hey, that's not what it's all about. It's about doing our best. Um, so in Buckinghamshire, I'm guessing the name Nick Baker should come to some kind of echo.
Yes, yes, I know Nick.
I just played with him recently, and we were talking about how to make a club successful. Speaking of tennis to paddle, the thing that I regularly ask of all types of paddle players is that transition. How does one actually get with the program of the wall is your friend? Because so many of my tennis buddies, great hands, got that testosterone pop, pop, pop at the front, love the net and the volleys, big smashes. But when it comes to the wall, no, 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 half volley from the back, get it, no, 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 anything but the wall. How do you think, what's the best method for unlocking that? Okay, the wall's cool.
I think initially tennis players were early adopters to the sport because their racket skills meant that they could play quite quickly. But now, as time's gone on, I have seen some amazing players come from badminton, squash, or no previous racket skills because they don't have that inhibition. And also, the brain is not wired to hit the ball rather than
Hard.
let it go past you, which
Right.
is so alien for tennis players. And tennis players are drilled to step in rather than step away. And the whole thing, it takes quite a lot of unprogramming for
Yeah.
tennis players. But yeah, I think that if they really, that's when you really see when a really good player, when they can uh, use that wall effectively. But probably majority of intermediate players are really good tennis players, just playing on a smaller
Mm,
court. You
exactly.
see it all the time social at amateur level, don't you?
Well, and I'm thinking, how is it that grown-up adults that really understand, someone told them the wall's your friend, let it
Yeah.
go. It's so difficult to unplug. I had Luis Estrada, who is one of the number one or top players in America, played ATP tennis, and he said, well, his indication was, I took me a year of losing to learn to play to win, which meant
Yeah.
letting the ball go by, even if he didn't know how he was going to handle it, letting it go into the corner, even if the spin was going to kill him, just finally get that experience. And once you get that experience, it's so sexy. You're like, oh, but this is a round, a turnaround, get it, pop. This is one off the back wall. I can lob it. No, I can't. You're sort of so much more present with the ball once you
Yeah.
get to that point. But it feels like it's a real ask, difficult ask for so many of the tennis players that just don't know how to unwire.
Well, of course, they can be very effective tennis players because they can just step in and half volley it. I mean, Pat Rafter's on the Australian team. Sarah Rani, I saw in Melbourne just now in the FIP. I mean, they're phenomenal,
Italian.
and they are, yeah, and they are really quite effective. So you really need. That's when you need to be a really, really good paddle player to be able to beat them at the strategic side of trying to push them back. Because I know with tennis players, if they ever get to the net, I'm in trouble.
Exactly.
I've developed a really great lob, as George will tell you. It's probably the only bit of my game that's really, really
Well,
effective. But yeah, no, but Sandy Farquharson has said something to me before about when you're training, it is important to let that ball go on the wall so that your brain picks up a memory bank of what to do with the ball. And I think that's what I try and do if I'm playing socially or in training. I just let it go if it's past that white line, just to practice, 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 and get better at it. It's a bit like sort of driving a car, isn't it? You've got that first stage where you've got to learn how to drive the car, and the next stage is making the decisions of where you're going. And it's a bit like that with paddle as well. Learn the
yeah,
ball,
with
but then you've the shot selection afterwards.
You have to learn the indicator, look in the rearview mirror.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yes, Sandy's also been on the show, as well as my good friend Gabo. And Gabo says really the lob is probably the most important shot. So that's a good thing. And one of the things, Pep, that I think is an easy thing, just to follow up on what you said, is when you're warming up, there's no reason not to let the ball go by. There's no risk. There's nothing at stake. Just let it go by. And it's remarkable when I'm warming up, I see somebody and they have good hands. I push the ball expressly at the baseline, a little bit over the service line, and see what happens. And if they don't even know how to do it then, they certainly won't know how to do it during the game. And it's a great telltale sign in the warm-up session. All right, so Pep, oh yeah, one other thing before we get into Empower Paddle, representing your country. Do you remember what was that? Is that the first time you've ever represented your country, or maybe you've done it in
Yes,
other?
yes. I
Yes.
mean, that was incredible to get that call up. I mean, that was 2022 to Las Vegas. We were the
Wow.
first six women from Australia to represent at vets level, and we had the most amazing trip there. It was phenomenal, and really those teammates are friends for life, I think. And then we went again to Alicante in 2022, and that was pretty cool as well. I mean, Australia is a tiny country, with 80 courts at the moment. I mean,
Yeah,
that's tiny,
nascent.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so nascent, exactly. So to come 16th in the world is not bad. So and amazing team spirit. We had a really great team, men and women really they were there to just enjoy it, right? But good competitors, the Aussies. They always want to win.
Good athletes. Yeah, I went to the World Championships in Doha in 2024, and it's remarkable how the difference between sort of pro level to passionate level moves. The difference between playing to win money and playing for your country or flag. It's such a it's a weight for sure. I mean, Sandy and I experienced that as well. Well, so Pep, in the time that we have left, I want to talk to you about Empower Paddle because that's really what I wanted to get to talk to you about. So let's talk about the beginning of Empower. What is Empower Paddle, and what are you trying to do?
Empower Padel is a global community for women and girls to either start, stay in, or return to sport through paddle because paddle is a phenomenal sport for engaging women. I'm sure you know, but some of the stats for the drop-off rate for girls it's horrific. Age 14, 45% of girls drop out of sport completely. There are different stats, but it's basically a problem. And that's in all sports. So paddle is fantastic to get women that maybe have never played sport before. And being Australian, I was brought up on all sports, the same as my brother. We played touch rugby, cricket, swam, everything. So when I meet women that have never played sport or team sport before, I'm wow, wow, that's incredible. But the joy on their faces when they realize they can play sport, and this narrative that they come to me with, I'm not sporty, I'm not good. By the end of the session, wow, because it's paddle, it's easy to take up, difficult to master, we know that, but easy for four of them to go and have a game. And so I suppose Empower Paddle is really about giving women confidence and an opportunity to try a sport that could well be something that they could play. It's achievable. And it's a team sport too. And I think, only 4% of women in the UK play team sport. So that's a pretty horrific statistic. So that's exciting to do something about that. Really exciting. Through paddle.
Well, I have a nice little story. I do seminars that I use paddle to open the chakras, if you will. I get them to experience paddle, experience the experience through the body, a lived experience. And then the next day we talk about business. And one time I was doing a session with 33 people, so mixed group with a luxury goods company, and three women came up to me and said, we don't want to do this. We've never played any, right? Well, I'm injured. I don't like racket sports. And so we do something else. I said, well, actually, of course, we've anticipated that. We have some yoga. We have some massage you can do over here. We have ping pong, if that's, maybe you can do that. Or we have a nice bar, And about 15, 20 minutes later, when everyone else had been playing on the other courts, one of the three women came back to me and said, oh, they look like they're having a lot of fun. I said,
Mm.
yes, 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 yes. Do you think there's any way, maybe we could just sort of do it in the corner, like that way? And I said, of course there is. So I took them over to a singles court, which was really useful because it's not quite as far. They're very close, social. And I played with them for about 5 minutes. I said, this is what you need to do. I let them bounce off the wall and let it bounce again. So it was easy to sort of accommodate the wall. 2.5 hours later, there was champagne on the side. Everyone else was pooped. I couldn't scrape them off the floor, off the court.
Well, Minty, you've done a good job. Good male allies are very important to
Well, and
champion
they
these.
and they were like, I can play sports. Of
Yes,
course you can.
exactly.
And you
Exactly.
can have fun and so on and so forth. So getting women and girls into paddle returning is interesting. Is there a different problem between getting someone to return versus getting someone to start?
Yeah, I mean, the thing I often say to, when I get asked this question is every single woman it has a different motivation for attempt trying to play paddle. Like before they even walk in that door of a paddle club, there will be different reasons for her. It might be time off from caring responsibilities. It might be that she wants to get fit. It might be she wants to see her friends. So the job of our job is to try and find out why it is she's there and make her feel welcome and comfortable. If they have never played sport before, there are all sorts of hang-ups there about I've had things like, oh, I don't play tennis or I was never taught tennis. That's quite a common one that comes up quite a lot. Amazing how many people feel this inferiority because they never learned tennis or, just those sort of insecurities. If they have played sport before and they have been a long time out, they're worried about fitness usually or just body.
Expectations probably as well, because they
Yeah, and
they
there's
may
also
have done something at a good level. Now,
exactly, exactly, exactly. I've got quite a lot of women that played quite a high level of netball or some other sport. But they're the ones, I mean, that once they've got it, you can't get rid of them. They are there all the time. Like you say, they're just, and the women that have never played sport as well. I mean, I think the thing about women is they are so loyal. And this is what I try to tell paddle venues, don't underestimate. If you welcome that woman and make her feel like this is a safe place to have fun with your friends. They'll stay for the F&B, they'll bring their kids, they'll buy the merch. I mean, they're so important to a paddle club. And I still think that paddle venues underestimate the power of really making a really good women's community. It doesn't mean they can't play mixed or whatever, but to start with, just making them feel comfortable in all women seems to be, in general, better.
it does feel like, I mean, the fact is that in Britain, France, and many starting countries, the men tend to be the ones on the court. And I can imagine that's a rather daunting experience. If you walk into a club, you see
Mm.
5 courts and not a single woman on the court. The coach is a guy, and it must be rather intimidating.
Yeah, and that's why I get a bit annoyed with these kind of figures that get battered around about, oh, globally 47% of players are women. Because maybe in the established countries, Spain, Portugal, Argentina, yes, socially it's 50-50, absolutely. But in these new countries, it is not 50-50, so and I think even in the recent FIP report, there were glaring issues in that only 28% of pro players are women. 29% of FIP juniors are girls. That's a huge issue. Like people aren't talking about that enough. There's issues there because it's not equal. So the numbers are being skewed by maybe those more established countries. But in the UK, it's probably, like you said before, 75% male, probably. So the chances are of a woman walking into a club and it's all men is pretty high. I mean, it happened this morning where I was. It was all men.
And I mean, I've talked to a bunch of people in the pro area. Marta Talavanta, name her. She's one of the representatives on the board to represent the players, the professional players. And we talked about that. And in many of the tournaments, one of the issues is that there aren't enough, let's say, competitive sets to play, and so there are not as many matches at the right level, And
Mm.
so for women to even get into it, if you're good, you just dominate because there are
Mm.
not enough women who are coming through the ranks to join in. And so it's sort of, there's a little bit of the egg and the chicken sort of feeling to making the competitions actually work.
Yeah, and that's where making a sport equitable from the start is so important, which is why the UK has a chance because it's new still here. But it doesn't happen by accident, and that's why Empower Paddle is actually quite important because for the ecosystem to promote women and girls, I think is really important because otherwise it's not going to happen naturally because gender inequity starts at age 5 in general, not just paddle. So the work we do is really important, I think, and the fact that we've had 1,000 women and girls on court in a year, 50 events, 2,500 on a database, that's important. So hopefully we will just keep growing it. But I think, we're grassroots level, but if you've got 28% of pro players women and 29% of the fit juniors are girls, there's an issue. So, you do need sort of organizations like us to be sort of working on the grassroots level.
Well, as I told you before, I studied as a minor in university in America, women's studies, and personally, I've always had sports in my life and consider it a rock, foundational piece of my education. How to play with a team, how to lose, how to pick yourself up off the ground when you've screwed up or whatever, and all these elements that are life lessons. And so it was very important for me for not I have a son and a daughter, for my daughter to be equally exposed to sport, to find her own, actually for him to find his own. So he didn't have to play paddle.
Yeah.
But to be able to learn about your body and be able to move through space and knowing how to fall, because by the way, life is full of stuff and sh star t. So knowing how to fall and get up is a huge part of any sport, obviously more physical like a rugby, but even in a tennis or a paddle.
I think that team sports are pretty phenomenal for girls or boys to learn everything you need to know about life. And I think there are studies, EY's definitely done something on leadership, and women that end up in C-suite boardroom positions have played some level of quite, senior team sports because you learn so much being part of a team. That's why paddle is good. I know it's not a huge team sport, but I've spoken about this before, because it's quite important. You've got to really get on with your partner on that paddle court. I don't know whether people really, it's such a small court, isn't it? That if you,
It
you really
is.
need, you really need to get on with your partner.
Yeah, well, I mean, to your point, if you look at the pros, I don't have evidence to say this, but the women pro paddle players speak even more than the men pro paddle players, and of course, the men, mostly Hispanic, speak a lot. But in essence, I think it represents the need for communication in the women's game, and no offense meant, it's a little slower. So there's more time in the air. There's more time during the point because of the velocity isn't necessarily coming at you at 100 miles an hour. Because that's, you don't get to talk between, Cuello Bajada, or, and for that matter, Gematria, of course. But, there is an element of the singing the song, the going and froing within the point where you're talking and communicating, much like life. You don't sort of do and then communicate. It's got to be sort of meshed in.
Yeah, well, both are physical, very physical. Those pro level. But personally, I find the women's game more interesting to watch because they really
Mm.
build the point.
Yeah.
Uh, and some of those shots are phenomenal. They're not any less phenomenal than the men's. It's just the men's maybe have more power because of their sort of, yeah, testosterone.
Well,
But
and
actually,
muscle, the
women's game, I
muscle.
think, is where it's at.
I mean, the fact is that we are different, and that shows up in sports, in most sports, unless horse riding and a few others. But in general, it shows up, and I think you're absolutely right. For us amateurs, watching the women's game is far more instructive than watching the men's because we go out there and there's an expression in golf, you drive for show and you putt for dough. There needs to be a translation in paddle. You
Yes.
smash for show, but you actually play paddle for dough. something like that. Right.
It could
So
be.
Empower Paddle, 50 tournaments in a year. You have Empower Paddle in Australia. What are you looking to build in the next year or so?
Well, I think that we are quite aggressive in our ambitions to try and get to a database of 10,000 within a couple of years. I think by 2032, which is the Olympics that everybody talks about, we we would love to be the global brand where women are introduced to the sport in a safe, warm, welcoming community. Already our community is global. We had a woman come from Australia to one of our holidays. We've got people asking me about going to Australia. So I think the world is actually small. And as the pro players, as those tournaments expand, they're expanding through Asia now, and we will start to see our players also. I would like to think they could come to Empower for a really nice community that they know has fabulous players, but also will help them to be the best player they can be. So yeah, I think we're on the right track. And of course, you can't do it by yourself. So I'm only as good as my team. And I am very, very lucky to work with some phenomenal women that are friends. Now and have been before. So, I've even got one of my oldest university buddies who was my tennis partner and netball co-captain. She's coming on board. I mean, these are all women that I've known for a long time, but also understand the power of sport for women. And paddle
Beautiful.
is such an amazing sport for that. I don't know whether people realize how amazing paddle is to bring women back into sport or starting sport. So our mission's quite clear.
It is, and I love it. So for somebody who's listening, who knows a woman or is a woman and wants to get involved with Empower, maybe they're in another country because there's quite a wide audience. Maybe they're in Britain or in Australia. What kind of advice or call to action can you give them?
Well, first of all, find one of our ambassadors. So that's one of our things that we're doing at the moment is rolling out ambassadors. But I do get
And so,
emails.
sorry, how would they find the ambassadors?
So I get a lot of emails actually from women all over asking me. I mean, we've done a phenomenal amount of rapport building behind the scenes that people don't see. I mean, I get a load of emails every week that will be from venues or saying we've got this woman that wants to do this or whatever it is, and I connect. So I've just done one today actually for some women in Scotland. So I had a paddle player friend that had moved back from Australia. I had another lady that was new into paddle that came to us through Instagram, and I had our ambassador in Scotland. And I put the three of them together over email and just
The
said,
sound
over
just
to you,
dropped.
have a game. Our power of our social media is huge, so we get a lot of inquiries through Instagram, and they can be all from all over the world. And emails, I probably do at least 10 emails a week connecting different women to different people. And so that's all behind the scenes. But as our team expands, we will start to have ambassadors in each venue to represent us so that, because it is a problem, because you need four people to play, right? So, and women don't automatically, they won't do an open match. Most women will not do an open match, which I know men tend to be more up for that.
Especially
And
apparently in Britain, apparently, according to
I,
Playtomic, anyway.
yeah, well, yes, exactly. I don't know, but yes. But women are a bit more shy. Also, the rating system is a big barrier for women, so they might have never played and they have to download this app and they undersell themselves, so their rating's zero point 0.8. So they can't join the beginner social, which starts at 1. So it's all these sort of issues. So I think a lot of our job is just building networks and communities. I have hundreds of WhatsApp groups all over for the place. So, if a woman comes to me, I usually say, where are you based? And I will connect her to someone. And I suppose that is the benefit of me having been in the sport since 2020. My network is enormous. And so I can rely on quite a lot of fantastic women all over the world, actually, that I can say. And even with, the US and Andy, I've put people in touch with her. So, and I think that's great because we can all, help each other.
It's a small base, so we have
A
a
small
long
base.
way to go.
Exactly.
You talked about email. Would you mind giving it out so people could write to you, or is that sort of top secret?
Okay, Vinta, I'm not sure how many people have you got listening to this.
Well, we will find out.
Message me through Instagram,
There
maybe.
you go. There you go. All right. So what's your
Empower
Instagram? What's your Instagram
underscore
handle?
paddle. Empower underscore paddle.
Brilliant. All right. Well, Pep, it's been lovely chatting with you. I do hope we get a good game in together, you and me, right? Or at least,
That would be
all
great.
right, let's
That
make
would be
that
great.
happen.
Yeah, you forgot to ask me what side I play on, but it's the right. So what side do you play on?
I play where I'm supposed to play.
Okay. Well, me too.
Yeah,
I can
there
play
we go.
wherever.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think I'd do fine on the left, but I don't want to make women have to play on the right. That's one of those
At
mixed
least you
doubles.
ask. Unlike my husband, at least you ask.
All right, listen, great to have you on, Pep. So, what's the final word for the future of paddle there?
I think the future for me is that we will have been successful if we end up in a world where women's only initiatives are no longer needed. And
Ooh.
I think that would be success.
I mean, to your point, at the end of the day, there are no sort of like male initiatives in paddle.
No, because you don't need them.
Exactly.
You
Beautiful.
guys are fine.
That's right. All right. I'll see you soon.
Thanks, Minter.